Happy Friday. It's Friday, November 20th. I'm Catherine Ross, and I am joined live by Jim Cramer. Jim, markets are lower, though the NASDAQ was pretty much flat. So how is Action Alerts Plus going to be approaching the
Well,
markets today?
my favorites, the COVIDs are actually doing great. I mean, it's once again one of those days where it's Roku, it's Okta. I did a piece called "The Up Stocks" last night, that was well covered by TheStreet, and the up stocks are seriously up, which is pretty good. Uh, and My derivative plays, which are some of the stocks we own, are doing okay. It seems like the ones that are really doing great are those smaller cap ones that I mentioned. But I'm looking over again the semiconductors as I do every morning, and I'm seeing good action in Broadcom, which is a Biden stock because they want to make acquisitions in China. I'm seeing some decent action in a stock that it's just killing me, NXPI. I think that's a very good one. And, in general, I think that we're, coming along, but trying to figure out what moves to make, given the fact that the market's so overbought. That's really my biggest problem. It is so overbought. I want it to come down. We have plenty of cash. It's not complying with my desire to have it come down.
So let's circle back and talk about these up stocks, which, in case our viewers
Sure.
don't know, range from Square to Amazon to Target. Investors, Jim, are trying to build up positions in any of these stocks,
Right,
but
right.
they're going to see this positive momentum that you've been talking about since we're overbought. When do they know when to pull the trigger?
Well, I think that you have to have both the NASDAQ and the Dow down. I mean, you don't want to be in a position where, let's Take Two. Okay, so Take Two's up 5 today. So then you got to start thinking, all right, so Take Two's up 5. Um, do you buy Take Two because it's finally breaking out, or do you sell Take Two because there's nothing really going on? And the answer is you have to do nothing. And the reason why you have to do nothing is the Take Two's got to be down 10 to intrigue, and Take Two's got to be up 10 to sell. So Catherine, is very much the range, okay? The range matters right here. And we're just in this terrible range where right now there is just complete chaos in terms of trying to figure out who's going to be president, which matters tremendously. I did a piece in Real Money about that and the importance of it, the importance of politics. So I look at this a day like today and I say, I want to see a definitive run on both. I got to have both the NASDAQ and the Dow go up. Otherwise, Catherine, this is just one of those, another day that's a transition day to who knows what. And I want something definitive, and I'm not getting it.
Speaking specifically about COVID, Jim, yesterday I virtually sat down with CEO of ARCTURUS, Joe Payne, which the company is in the middle of vaccine trials, but it is in phase 1/2. However, Payne told me
Okay.
that their candidate will be a powdered single-dose vaccine, and he noted that this vaccine candidate might be best for countries that are not able to properly store the frozen candidates that we've seen from Moderna and Pfizer. So, Jim, is a stock like ARCTURUS a stock to watch for investors?
Too small. What I'm really looking at when it comes to vaccines, uh, I'm waiting for a Glaxo move. Glaxo's been a terrible stock. I mean, miserable. And I think that it is at a point where you can say to yourself, I'm backstop. The worry is, of course, the dividend. Is the dividend safe? It's 5.3. The one thing no one's talking about is how good their vaccine could be. I think their vaccine is going to be amazing. Would it get 100%? It's a two-stage vaccine, but I'm betting that they may be better than Moderna and Pfizer. But Moderna will keep going up. I think that I'm just trying to figure out why the hell CVS doesn't come back now on day 3 of the Amazon pasting, since CVS is probably going to be a place that you get the vaccine. But maybe it's just it's a recognition that whether it be Arcturus or whether it be CVS, whether it be Moderna, or whether it be UPS, there's no plan. There's no plan. And so it's not like when you got the polio shot where you knew exactly what's going to happen. So we're kind of in a position right now where we don't know. So therefore, why try to speculate that any of these stocks will be any good? Let's hold off for now. The next one probably that you're going to hear the good news about it is a Regeneron vaccine. I like Regeneron very much. I think healthcare stocks are too cheap. So maybe that's one, but I'm not excited about the group anymore. I'm more excited about Bristol-Myers and more excited about AbbVie.
And you've been hitting hard on this idea that there's the fact that there is no plan that at least we have
Okay.
heard about as the general public, or you and I as
We
the
heard
media.
4 weeks ago. We heard it was the military that was going to distribute it. They were on 60 Minutes. Military. They had the person who's running it. He said, "I'll get it to you." No, military's not running it, or at least from what we can tell, UPS might be running it and FedEx. But here we have it. This is a classic example. The military, of course, is federal. The administration has always let the states handle things. The states are very ill prepared and don't have any money and don't even know how to tell people what to do. The pharmacies certainly are ill equipped. You can't even get CVS on the phone. How would you possibly get an appointment? So, I mean, I was discussing on this morning on CNBC the notion that it's just going to be pure chaos. And no one can dispute that. I was speaking to a pharmacist just the other day. He said, "Look, if I knew what was going to happen, I'd really like to help you, Jim." That's suboptimal, Catherine. We don't know what's going to happen.
Well, and this comes as the timeline starts to progress, right? Because right now we've got Pfizer applying. They did apply for an emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration for their vaccine candidate. So I think overall, Jim, the question remains, is it too soon for investors in this market to get too excited?
Well, I mean, no one's going to make any money off this thing. Gilead didn't go up. Lilly barely went up. Regeneron barely went up. Pfizer went down. I mean, I think it's a better situation to avoid this part of the group, or to look at, say, McKesson, which I don't think is going to get hurt that badly by Amazon. But Amazon came in and took the wood to all of the ones that were kind of ancillary that I thought were going to make it. The notion of so many different vaccine companies making any money. I mean, we sold J&J. Now, we sold J&J too soon, but we bought Boeing. And to me, I'd rather be in a cyclical like a Boeing than a J&J. I mean, Boeing is up, 40 points from where we got involved, and J&J is up like 6. And I think that I'm looking to the cyclicals, because if the vaccine works, Catherine, then the best money is going to be made in cyclicals.
Well, and I think that what you just said is really backed up by the news that we got yesterday, that the WHO is recommending against the use of remdesivir in hospitalized patients, and I quote, regardless of disease severity. Is this just proof to you that, your theory stands as is, which is don't get too excited yet?
Yeah, you can. Now, David Ricks, who's the terrific CEO of Lilly, came out this morning and said that you use his drug in conjunction with remdesivir. And I think that what the WHO missed entirely with it, still one more ill-informed decision as far as I'm concerned, is that it was meant to be part of a cocktail, not to mention standalone. I mean, that's like saying, I mean, just to be really crass about it, it's gin and it tastes really bad, so don't drink gin. Well, I mean, you have a tonic. It is that simple. It really is that simple. And the WHO comments were so depressing for me, because they seem to have very real problems with dealing with what's happening in medicine. And remember, also, there's been enough evidence for me to indicate that WHO is controlled by China, and that's a terrible thing to say, but it sure seems to be the case.
Jim, I want to move our discussion over to the economic side of things, because yesterday we heard from the Treasury Secretary, and you spoke to him this morning, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, about the decision.
Yeah, we had a good interview with this Treasury Secretary, whom I've known for many, many years, and I frankly am fond of him. I mean, I think that I've had many, many discussions with him on air, and the essence, his caring for the small and medium-sized business is absolutely unassailable. And so, I mean, I had to take it with a grain of salt, the things that were said about him in this morning's paper. But you know what? I've got to tell you that I thought he acquitted himself well in the interview.
Well, and in your interview with him, he noted that airlines have plenty of liquidity. He noted that the Federal Reserve voiced its displeasure with its decision. But Jim, overall, do you agree with his decision to stop the program?
I think that the part of the program that he stopped was reasonable because it wasn't being used. What I don't like is that in order to be able to reorient the money to where it needs to be, you have to go to Congress. And that is questionable because Congress is going to not, I think, do what's right. And that matters to me because if you can't get Nancy Pelosi and the Republican Senate to agree, then you really have lost a kind of ethereal backstop that might have been necessary for a lot of different companies, particularly private companies. And so I wish it hadn't happened, but I thought he explained it well.
So do you think, it sounds like from what you just said, that you don't think that there will be any serious stimulus talks being taken place during this lame duck period?
Well, he did say he was going to talk to Speaker Pelosi. I know he thinks that there should be a restaurant back up. He said that to me many times. And that is so important because I, among many other restaurant owners, and I speak and follow the industry closely, have the white flag up. I mean, there's a really depressing tweet from Dr. Gottlieb today. Let me see if I can find it because it's really just devastating for people who are in the restaurant business. Gottlieb.
Was this I think I saw that tweet. Was it the one where with the current levels where they are, that there's over a 50% chance in a restaurant of 47 people, there's a 50% chance that at least one person has COVID?
I read that and immediately said to my wife, and I read it very early, we can't do it. We can't reopen. Until everybody has the vaccine, we can't reopen because this is how people get COVID. And I am not going to be party to how people get COVID, even if it means that I want very much my restaurant to reopen. And it's really too bad because the odds are bad. The odds are just bad. And Gottlieb was very sobering. Remember when we thought it was from surfaces? That was another example of where science initially let us down. We thought it was from surfaces, washing hands. So it's correct not to touch each other. But we felt that it was on whatever we touch, and we clean everything. But we refused to generally wear masks. Now I have a mask competition that I've run through. I suggest people vote on it. xprize.org/mask. But they keep getting it wrong. I mean, they got that wrong. And this basically says, listen, we got to close the restaurants. And I think he's right. As painful as it is, we got to close the restaurants. And what I was hoping was Secretary Mnuchin would endorse the idea this morning that he has X billions that he'll put in the Restaurant Act of 2020. But again, you've got to have cooperation, and there's no cooperation.
And just to quickly put this data into context for our viewers, this is based on North Dakota statistics right now. It's from Bernstein Research, and it does say restaurants, but it does not clarify whether it means indoor seating or outdoor seating. I just want to put that into clarity.
It's indoor. That's because that's the ratio. I mean, it's indoor in the sense that if you typically don't have ventilation, this is what you get. He's been pretty adamant that outdoor is okay because of the airflow, provided the actual amount of space between the tables should be 8 feet, not 6 feet. But I read this and just said, okay, listen, it's likely that 2 people in my restaurants have COVID. And if that's the case, shut down. Can't do it.
Unfortunately, Jim, I think that this discussion really feeds into your real money column this morning. And I say unfortunately because you focus on why you can't just stick to stocks and that you need a game plan, whether it's you personally, Jim, or any investor watching this, between what's going on in DC with the presidential transition and the vaccine rollout. So looking at this, Jim, where should investors start with this game plan?
Well, I think that Biden's in, but I think that you have to recognize that you can't buy any Biden stock on the day where nothing's happening because The next day will be a story about, by the president. The president is doing his absolute best to make it so that he seems like he's going to be president. And President-elect Biden, I think, is doing his absolute worst about trying to look or act presidential. Like, why is he not right now laying out his cabinet? Not like, I'll have a Treasury Secretary maybe after Thanksgiving, maybe not. He needs to be presidential. He needs to be able to seize control of the debate. He's got to get on the front page. He's got to get Trump off the front page. And he's been very poor at that. And that's one of the reasons why we are struggling so much to try to figure out exactly what's going to happen. I mean, the president's tweeting about the case for the election fraud. He's the Michigan, a day after the election, Biden receives a dump of 134,000 votes at 6:31 a.m. I mean, he's creating a terrible, he's sowing tremendous destruction. And hate him or like him, you have to recognize that Trump isn't leaving. It's going to have to take the Electoral College, December 14th, to make it so that you don't know whether it's good to own a Biden stock or a Trump stock.
Jim, let's talk about GE, because you mentioned it earlier today. And I was looking at this acquisition of Prismatic Sensors. I wanted to know whether or not you like this acquisition.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, they're a dominant company in CT. And anything that makes them more dominant is good. But what really matters is this is the first acquisition that Larry Culp has made. Now, I tried to pin them down about the size of the acquisition. They wouldn't do that. That makes me feel like that perhaps it's so small that that you had this issue released, but no more than that. But what matters is psychologically, I've been begging Larry to play offense. I've been begging him to make acquisitions. And he had felt that the balance sheet was not right yet. The fact that he's making an acquisition today is signaling to me that he's going with what I suggested, which is that show us that you can play offense. And this is still one more reason that you want to own this stock.
All right, and Jim, and before we wrap today, I wanted to ask you about Roblox. We spend a lot of this show talking about the vaccine plays, but this is a stay-at-home play in my eyes. So Roblox filed for an IPO prospectus. The company saw revenue jump about 91% from a year ago. And I know that you've been saying that video game stocks are really, there for when you're staying at home.
I mean, I guess maybe Take-Two's up because of that. I passed on a meeting with them just because things are so difficult in terms of my time and my schedule right now because there's just so much happening. But that deal's going to work. It's worth putting in.
All right, and with that, it's a wrap for this week. Thank you so much for joining us today, and do not forget that we are heading over to our Action Alerts Plus daily live show for members right now. Come join us over there for more of Jim's insight. I'm Catherine Ross, and we'll see you on Monday.